And well, let's begin with 3 amazing people, and I'd like to welcome on stage Josef Aschbacher, Director General, European Space Agency. Charles Beigbeder from Audacia, and in the Zoom, because of the strikes, Jean-Marc Nasr. Hello, Jean-Marc. Thanks for being with us.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, let me ask you some questions. Let me begin with you, Josef. Josef, a lot has happened in new space over the past 5 years, where we've seen a real creation of a new space ecosystem. So, what are, according to you, the main challenges and perspectives within new space, and what kind of startups do we need in Europe to ensure that Europe continue to be a big player? What do you think?
So thank you, Florence, and very happy to be here. Hello also remotely, Jean-Marc. Nice to see you on the screen. So what is happening in new space, and what are the main challenges, but also opportunities on the space world? And I say a few words from the perspective of the European Space Agency. And as you know, or as many of you know, the commercialization is one of our priorities in Agenda 2025, which is our strategy paper of where we believe we need to emphasize or put energy into in order to really succeed for space in Europe in general. And that's not for ESA, that is for space in Europe. And commercialization has many dimensions, and certainly startups and new space is one of them, or is a big one of them, where we need to really make big changes. So what are they? We are, apart from having created the internal structure, we have Geraldine Nasher with us, the Director of Commercialization, Industry and Procurement. We have really engaged a lot in, on one side, identifying these startups, where they are, bringing them together, but also helping them in different ways. And if I may simplify a bit, I think there are a few ways where we can really make a difference or help the startup community develop huge projects and realize the dreams. First of all, you need good ideas with people who are brilliant and who are ready to drive this idea and succeed. There we have really a lot of them in Europe, and I think it's an asset of Europe that we have a very well-educated workforce, a very well-educated group of people who are full of ideas, full of energy, and just want to do it. The second challenge I see is access to funding, and that is something where Europe, of course, has not the same possibilities as, for example, in Silicon Valley, where about 60% of all venture capital funding is along more or less one street with all the venture capital companies. And the same in space. Also in space, most of the funding is coming from the US. But there I have to say that we have made huge progress to really come up with agreements with venture capital companies. Charles is one example with whom we have signed one. In the last year and a half, we have signed 20 of those with venture capital companies, with investors, also the European Investment Bank, which are institutions or private companies ready to put money into space because they have recognized that space is a future economic domain that grows and that has a huge potential. And I'm really happy about that, but we will work a lot on this domain. And the other part, of course, is speed to get much faster, much more taking more risk and being much more, a bit American style, if I may say it. Of course, Europe is quite different from America, but to take more risk and also be much faster in taking decisions, implementing them, implementing projects, and really fully embrace this spirit of what you would call new space. So we're working very much on all these dimensions, especially on ESA, because my ambition is to really build up this ecosystem of startups, of young companies who can make a difference. How can they make a difference? Procurement is a big element in this aspect. Procurement means, of course, we have the classical way of procuring, but doing much more service procurement, anchor tenancy, that we allow industry to take the initiative, take the innovation. They are fast, they are very innovative, and really give them the lead in defining programs and activities where we are there as a customer, institutional customer for the long term, making sure that we buy a service. This could be a service of a space station in low Earth orbit. This could be a service to the moon. This could be a service even to Mars. This could be a service on Earth observation, that we are there as a customer, but also technology developer, that we identify those building blocks that are critical, where our investments need to be made in order to overcome some technical hurdles and help industry to get there and bring this together. So there's a lot that we need to do. I think Europe has woken up, if I may call it this way, and is quite active, quite dynamic, also in the startup communities. I'm really glad to see this from the side of ESA. I hope we contribute to this, and we will certainly continue contributing to this, because I think Europe has so much to offer, has so many opportunities, so many talents, and I really would like to see them realized. And from my side, from the ESA side, we do whatever we can.
Thank you, Joseph. And you can see some of these amazing talents within the room today. Well, and there is another talent next to me, Charles.
Thank you, Florence.
What is your view?
I'm embarrassed.
So, Charles, you're seeing a lot of startups. What kind of space innovation do you see in the startups you meet, and what are the new innovation and business model you find the most interesting? We want to know.
Yeah, I will tell you in a second, just maybe to tell you that, so I'm running a private equity firm, Audacia, and we have several verticals in deep tech. One is quantum technologies with quantonation, which is becoming more and more recognized worldwide in its field. And the second vertical is new space. And this is a fund called Expansion. It's going to be a pan-European fund targeting 300 million. At the moment, we have not finally closed this fund, but we have already some capital to be deployed, and we have a portfolio of, I think it's on the screen, comprising 10 or 11 ventures. And so Expansion is based in Paris and in Stockholm. It's really a European fund. And so what do we see? Well, first we see a lot of energy, a lot of entrepreneurship, and that's really what is exciting in this new phase of the space industry worldwide, and especially in Europe. And so all domains are impacted, of course, in the launcher domain, in constellations, in space situational awareness, because the number of objects in orbits is going to be multiplied by a factor of 100 in the coming 10 years, let's say. So we have to avoid they collide each other, and we need to have a good mapping of all these objects, of course. So that's, for instance, the companies you see on the screen, which are Lookup Space and Share My Space. So in the micro launchers, you see Latitude, Hyperspace, who is there today. We have also in ventures in electric propulsion. So when the satellites are in orbit, they need to sometimes to move, so either to avoid an object or to get to the right orbit. Or to be de-orbit at the end of its mission. We have also optical communication, very important. So those satellites, those constellations, they are there to observe, they are there to connect people, and they gather a lot of data, and they need to transmit that data to the ground. So you can do it using microwave, but sometimes it's more efficient to do it through laser, but then you need to analyze the turbulences of the atmosphere. So that's what is proposing Miraclass in partnership with Airbus and Orange, by the way. So, well, really, you have plenty of sectors, extremely interesting, extremely booming, and we are there in all of them. I cannot tell you now in advance the winners, but it will probably come from each of those categories. And what is really exciting is that those entrepreneurs, they are going very fast. So we have invested in most of them in pre-seed and seed phase. Now some of them have already entered or even passed the Series A phase, and we need to prepare for the Series B, and in order to be able to support their development. Otherwise, all that efforts will have been done for other type of investors, or if it's industrial from Europe, fine. But if it's if it's people across the Atlantic or from Asia, then it would be a pity for Europe. But let's not be negative. I don't want to conclude on that. We are very confident we will be able to support them all along their life, and even beyond Series B, when they will become unicorns, scale-ups, and try to get to your to reach your very fantastic successful story at Dassault Systèmes.
Thank you very much, Charles, and we're very impressed by all the startups you're supporting. Now let me turn to Jean-Marc in the Zoom. Hello, Jean-Marc. So how do you react to what Charles just said? What do you see happening in the space ecosystem, and how do you, as Airbus Space, collaborate with startups? Competitors or source of innovation for you?
Good afternoon, Florence and colleagues. Sorry enough for not being with you, but I could not cope between the strike and my schedule, so I had to stay here in Toulouse, but I'm very happy to be with you. Honestly, let me start by how do I see the market evolution. It's an incredible marketplace, what we are seeing today. It's incredible because we see a growing demand for space and for data from space. We also see the increasing importance of space for sovereignty. The French president last year said at the same time that space is the sovereignty of the sovereignties, which plant the scene of what it is for us. So what we see also a decline of cost for accessing space. It's clear technology advances that we can see everywhere. It makes the landscape very efficient for new entrants to come on the scene. And that's excellent news. I want to say it clearly, even if I'm at the head of a historical space player, seeing this move is excellent. We also are an investor in space as a historical player. We are invested in a Earth observation constellation. You see behind me a Pléiades Neo mock-up near my shoulder. We invested 700 million euros to build 4 satellites for observing the planet at a very high resolution. Unfortunately, we lost 2 of them in the last Vega crash, but we don't stop here. We will continue to replace them and develop them. We also invest in an extraordinary partnership. I want to mention what we do with CNES on CO3D, which is a constellation of 4 satellites for revisit and elevation model production. That's a joint investment between CNES and Airbus, where we will build a constellation that will serve the need of the French users and beyond. So we do that a lot in the future. Coming into the startups, it's part of our life today. And what I said at the beginning, it's an opportunity for us because we see them bringing new ideas that could not happen in a big company like ours, but are boosting what we do. I give you some examples of that. You know, we've done the constellation, the OneWeb constellation. There are many people speaking about constellation, but actually there are only 2 constellations flying, Starlink and OneWeb. The others are still paper constellations. But we have done that. And to do a OneWeb, 645 satellites, 1.5 satellites per day produced, it's thanks to cuts from the automotive industry. This is completely innovative, and we've done that. We are working with many small companies and startups in different sectors. First, we include startup or small companies' product into our portfolio. And when we include a startup product, we stop doing it internally because it makes really sense to link forces together. I want to speak of what we do with Astrocast on the Internet of Things, the multi-layer installation blankets for integration of our platform with Hemeria, which is a partner, the partnership we signed last year with Exotrail for satellite thrusters, Charles mentioned it. We also are a supplier to startup. I am a humble supplier to Loft Orbital, who is bringing to the market a satellite as a service concept. This startup came to us and bought 57 platforms from us to continue to grow their development. So it's a real partnership that we see. And beside that, we see also we are investing in startups through our investment arm, where we are participating in Airbus Ventures. We selectively in investing into those startups at different stages. I want to give you in 1 minute my photo of the ideal startup for us. And it's a bit in sync with what Joseph said. We need to see a motivated team with a long-term vision. Space is not short-term, it is long-term. We cannot team with a startup that will disappear in 3 years. We are not interested in teaming with a startup that only wants to be billionaires in 3 years. This is not working for us. We want someone that wants to create value. Second, we want a differentiator with us. It has to bring added value to us. And then, as I said, we stop doing what they do. And third, we are looking at startups that have immediately thought of international setup. The best startup for us today is a startup that has a foot in Europe and a foot in the United States, just because there is a $40 billion a year market in the US, and that's where it happens. And this is what Loft Orbital is doing. So if those startups are like this, we go and team with them. We are a booster for them because we bring them along with us in our big programs, and they boost us because they make sure us change our way of working. So it's an absolute positive relationship that we have. Of course, all startups will not survive, but the one we have selected will, and we will base our long-term future on them. So it's absolutely positive. Then, just for you to keep a view that we are not late compared to the US, no, Europe is really advanced. I give you 2 examples. There is no satellite, there is no American on the moon without Europe and without what we do at ESA on the ESM. The Artemis mission is built by Europe. The vital part of the Artemis spacecraft is done by Europe, and the launch last year was a success. Second, and stay with me, I want to make you dream 1 minute. We will be the first company and the first continent that will bring samples from an external planet to Earth. When the Mars-Earth Return Orbiter mission will come back, we'll bring back the samples of Perseverance to Earth. That will be a premiere in this planet. So it is Europe, it is France, it is our industry, all together teaming for this. And I think there is no more exciting job than being in space at the moment.
I think everybody in this room agrees there is no more exciting job to be in space at the moment. Thank you very much, Jean-Marc. And I'm sure, Joseph, you agree as well. And you're convinced, like me, that space is a big driver of innovation. So, ESA, how do you plan to help the ecosystem to increase innovation?
No, we're doing a lot in ESA. I can only share what Jean-Marc was saying. There's a lot of, there's a change of mentality, a change of way how we interact between, I would say, more the traditional way of 10 or even 20 years ago and today, because today industry is playing a very different role as an innovator, and we as ESA become a partner to industry in order to really develop new technologies and new infrastructure. What do we do in ESA in concrete terms? At the ministerial conference in November last year, we had a huge success, as everyone knows, plus 17%, plus inflation on top. But out of this, more than 1 billion is allocated to programs that are fostering commercialization or new space activities that are co-funded. That means, and they go across the board, from scale-up to InCube to Boost and several others. And they are really programs in the program directorates or program domains where we know that commercialization is driving, is really accelerating very fast, and where we need to change approach by co-investing or co-engineering even some of the infrastructure we do. There are several examples where we are actually already engaged, where we have ClearSpace is one of them, where we build, again, with the initiative of a company, a spacecraft that will take literally a piece of debris out of the orbit. And the model we applied is really a new space model. They have defined it. We have helped them. We have funded, or we are the customer, to pay for the service so that they remove this debris. But also we have helped them along the way to build up technology and make sure it does succeed. So we are putting a bit of a helping hand there in order to realize it and make it successful. But certainly there are many of these projects that are in the making, either already existing or coming up in the future. Also, you can make much bigger dreams and think in a much bigger scale than just one satellite. Allow me for 1 minute to dream a bit and really, I would say, inspire also many of the new space people here in the room, which I know that you are very enthusiastic and fascinated by many of the things. Just now, we are having a group called the High-Level Advisory Group on robotic exploration, human and robotic exploration. Today, as everyone knows, we do not have a European rocket that brings European astronauts with the European rocket using a European capsule into space, either to a low Earth orbit destination or to even further to the moon. We don't have that. We fly today with America. We used to fly with Russia in the past, as you all know. The question is, why does Europe not have that? If we could instigate this dream that Europe needs such a capability, because Europe has the talents and the knowledge, Europe has the capability, I think also economically, geopolitically, and from an expertise point of view, a lot of assets to offer that we can do it, but it's a matter of political decision that we need to realize these dreams. If we manage to ignite this dream, and if we manage to realize that, then there is plenty of opportunities, also from a commercial perspective, including anchor tenancy models and new space companies that can participate in this undertaking and really develop a completely new dream for Europe to bring European astronauts to the moon with the European on a European rocket, all the way with a European transfer module and down to the surface. And I think this is fascinating. We are not there yet, I have to say, but we are leading this debate right now. We are preparing this debate for our member states. I see Philippe is one of them here in the room. I know France is very supportive, very strong also in this in terms of capability, but of course we have to discuss this with all the member states, 22 of them in ESA, but certainly something where I think there's a huge potential, and I would like to ask all the young entrepreneurs and startups and people here in the room to help us pushing this dream forward, because I think Europe needs dreams of this kind. We have the energy, we can do it, but we need to do it together.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And you have to know that I have a dream. As a woman, on the day of International Women's Day, I really want a French woman astronaut to go to the moon and beyond. So I count on all of you to make it happen.
Do you want to be the one? Florence, do you want to be the one?
No, I was thinking of somebody else, like she might be in a better condition than me, I think. But let me turn back to Jean-Marc in Toulouse. At Dassault Systèmes, of course, we think that digital is a huge accelerator of innovation. And I know that at Airbus, you have a big program called DDMS, Digital Design Manufacturing Services, and that it can really help you accelerate innovation. So can you tell us more about this program, Jean-Marc, and what you expect from it?
It is probably the biggest revolution we have seen in our company since we started to do space. The ambition is to reduce time to market by a factor of 2, to reduce our cost by a factor of 30%, and to do it by digitalizing the entire chain from design, early design to production and serving the satellites. So we have initiated this initiative, this work in 2017 and started to implement that together with you at Dassault Systèmes on our telecom satellites. I want to say that it's a success. We have not reached yet our ambition of reducing time to market by 2, but we are working on it. But the good news is that there is no way back what we do here. First, because our clients want to see our model-based system engineering approach. Our customers want to see what we are doing and want to be involved together with us at the different phase of the satellite construction and implementation. So we have implemented that on telecom satellites, and we are today doing that. What are the 2 areas where we have been probably over-optimistic and underestimating the difficulty? Well, digital chain is relying on data, and data must be absolutely crisp and solid to make sure we base our decision on something we can follow. And we had to do an enormous work in cleaning our data to make sure the data that are in the system are the one we want to see. And we discovered that we were doing that a bit in an anarchic and pragmatic way before, and it doesn't cope with the digital system. We have made an enormous progress in that. It has cost us much more than we thought, but now we have a clean data set on which we can work. The second element which we need to take into account in such a revolution is that you have to take care of the mindset of everyone in the company, down to the latest technician that is assembling the satellite in the clean room. And this has revealed to be probably more complicated than we thought. For engineers, doing design is easy to embark onto a digital journey. They are used to that. They are working with digital tools all the day. But for companion manufacturers, people building satellites, it's a revolution. Giving them an iPad in their hands instead of a paper to check the different phases of the integration is something you have to take into account. So training them, making them work with those tools has been also probably underestimated by us, but we are catching up. And the good news is that we have already delivered 2-digit percentage of improvement in there, and we see the incredible potential this system has for the future. So for us, there is no way back. We will implement that now on Earth observation satellites, and Philippe Pham in the room with you can testify it. We are going to implement this in all what we do going forward. And the capital we create, the power, the added value we create by having clean data sets and people working on it at the same time, including our suppliers that need to be involved into the process, is incredibly powerful. It comes with obligations. Cybersecurity is our concern. We cannot exchange blueprint between players if it's not secure. All of us are attacked every day. So we are only teaming with people that can spend enough of their money to protect themselves, because if we're not protected, then it's an issue. So it's something that it's a race against the attackers that are even more powerful every day. But I think there is no way back. As I said, the journey has started. It's already paying back, and I'm very confident in the future.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. That's very enlightening on how digital can help accelerate space and what to do in order to make it happen. Thank you very much. And now, Charles, let me ask you a question, and I'm sure a lot of startups in the room want to know, how do you recognize a future successful startups, and what are the criteria for you to decide to put the money of Audacia in the startup?
All right, third question. No, nothing extremely original, but let me summarize. I would say, well, first the people, the entrepreneurs, then the market, and the technology. So the people, yeah, we are talking about creating a new firm, developing a new firm. It's going to be difficult, a long route. There will be a lot of challenges, so we need a team. I'm not sure. Of course, you need a captain. You need a head of the startup, but you need a team, and there will be times where things will be very difficult. If it's a one-man show, it's dangerous. I'm not talking about accident that can happen. So we need a team that are extremely motivated, that are with charisma, with fighting spirit, and with flexibility, flexible mindset. That are not too, in French we say, psychorigide, not too psychorigide, because that can be difficult. Not talking about the negotiation with the venture guys. So we need all those qualities and a vision, of course. And then the vision of the market. So the second criteria is the market size. We are not there to invest in niche players, because we are in deep tech. We are in the new space market. So there are a lot of risks. So we need the size to cope with that risk, to de-risk in a way, so that when we succeed, it will be 100x on our capital deployed. So it compensates for the failures, because there will be failures, and that's not a problem. And that's our role in the ecosystem, by the way, to support a certain number of ventures, and some will fail or be consolidated, as we can say, and which is okay. And because they will have built technological bricks that will be very useful to industrial, and they will not go up to Dassault Systèmes. And then we need technology. Of course, we are in deep tech, so we need a strong technology. We need partnership. That this technology is proven. The science has been done. It's no more fundamental research. It's real. We are talking about engineering, and so we have to make sure with our partners, whether they are members of our board or with ESA, with CNES, with the Swedish Space Agency as well, with which we are working. We will double check the technology and make sure that it's credible and it's worthwhile accompanying for a certain number of years. So that's really the three criteria on which we invest.
Thank you, Charles. So now it's very clear for everybody what you have to know if you want to convince Charles. So thank you for giving your criteria. And now let me ask a question to the three of you. Space exploration. When do you think we're going to be able to be on Mars? And what kind of breakthrough do we need to get there? Like when I say we are going to be on Mars, I mean a man or a woman. And preferably a woman, you understood, will be on Mars. Who wants to take it? Joseph?
I know you want a French woman to be on Mars first, of course.
With the French flag.
With the French flag, obviously. No, I think, Mars is certainly, I would say, a remote goal, but it is a goal which we should really keep on the horizon. Otherwise, we are not going to the first steps and the second steps, which are certainly low Earth orbit and then the Moon, and then from the Moon further to Mars. Seeing Jean-Marc here in front of me on the screen, this is something where I think we have to go together, not only with Jean-Marc, but also many colleagues from industry, because, yes, Jean-Marc is agreeing, with colleagues of industry. And this is, for me, also one way of, when I mentioned before the dream, which I think we should instill in Europe, it's absolutely necessary, but it's also clear to me that if we invest in this, if we do that, we have to do it in a very different way than what is done today, not only in Europe, but also in other continents, in America and in other continents. Because it is obvious that, number one, we have to have a very commercialized approach, meaning that the public institutions like ESA, we would define the requirements, we would develop technology building blocks or develop technology bricks, and we would then be the customer, the anchor customer, to say, we would like to have an astronaut of whatever nationality going to Mars or going to Moon first or going to the low Earth orbit stations first in order to do that. And we will be there, not only today, to kick it off, but in 5 years, in 10 years, and in 15 years, to make sure that we pull this through and we accompany this process, and we are there as a guarantor to make it happen. And believe me, to get there, there will be a lot of obstacles and hurdles to overcome, from technologies to regulatory to funding, all the usual issues that will be on the table. But if we decide to do that, we can do it together, and that really is a symbiosis of private investors, of industry, and of the public sector. And this we have to achieve in order to get there. I think the other thing we have to change is not only the way how we procure and how we engage in this, it is also the technology itself. Because what we see today is, call it the more conventional technology going back to the Moon. I think that if Europe wants to engage in this process, and I do not want to preempt some of the considerations we are doing right now in order to see what can be done in a more revolutionary way, also a much cheaper way in terms of system architecture and engineering that we apply, must be different from what is existing today. And if I say must be different, again, industry should help us through innovation, drive and come with new solutions in order to get there. And there we should, from the side of ESA or public institutions, certainly stimulate the market, develop technologies, making sure that it can be done, and we help if there are low TRL levels to be increased to higher TRL levels, or building blocks to be built, that we do that. But certainly industry, I would like to see here also in the driver's seat to come with innovative ideas that this can be made. So yes, we can do it if we put our act together, our energies and our resources. We just have to say yes, we do it, and then we can go.
Yes, we will. What do you think, Jean-Marc?
I'm with Joseph. I think going to Mars, putting the first boots of a man or woman on Mars is not for tomorrow morning, because there are many hurdles to pass before. But I think it starts with the Moon, as Joseph said. The Moon economy is within our reach. We'll see it within our generation. We'll land on the Moon again in 28 with Artemis 3, and not to go there and come back, but to stay. Not the first flight, but the idea is to stay on the Moon. This will make us develop many technologies to produce oxygen locally, to develop a local economy that will allow for staying and going further, and it's important. When it's going to Mars, we have many technologies to develop still. I want just to mention one, which is the thruster, the propulsion. You can go to Mars, you can propulse a spacecraft to Mars, but when you want to come back, it's a different story. It's and you have to come back.
You might want to come back.
Yeah, this is still to be developed. I want also to mention the mission we'll launch in April with ESA to Jupiter. We're going to explore the icy moon of Jupiter. This is an 8 years travel. The spacecraft goes to Jupiter for 8 years. It's switched off, then it switch on, does the mission, and it works. It's something incredible. When I see we're doing that in Europe, I'm absolutely thrilled. So I think it's a long journey. Many generations will pass. I think the game is on. We're going there. It will happen. And we resolve technical issues every day with our partners. I'm afraid it won't be a French flag because this is requiring so many cooperation that to be a European flag at least. And my wish is that the European flag stands at the equal level with the American flag on those kind of projects. But on Artemis, this is the case. We are not anymore into a kind of a barter situation with NASA. NASA and ESA work together to do the ESM and Orion. On Mars, it's a collaboration on equal basis between the two. And I'm also looking at the next step, which is replacing the International Space Station that will be decommissioned at the end of the decade. We are working as Airbus in the next project for a private space station. And we are looking forward to having strong links with ESA and NASA to make it together, but on equal footing, not in a different way. So all this is on the way. My only worry and my only disappointment is I won't be there to see that because it will go beyond my time. But we are working for future generations. So let's do that together. And I think it will be paying back, all of us.
Yeah, Jean-Marc, Dassault Systèmes is also working on healthcare, so we will help you. Please.
Thank you.
Charles, a European flag with a European astronaut on Mars?
Yeah, why not? I don't know when exactly, but on the way to Mars, we need to go to the moon, and on the way to the moon, we need to have humans on a space station on the lower Earth orbit. And at the moment we have the ISS. We talked about that during the lunch. The ISS is going to be decommissioned at the end of the decade, and there will be private projects instead. We need to have a European project amongst them. And as a venture capitalist, of course, this seems to be far-fetched or too far for us, but not really. In fact, we have already invested in two companies that are developing space cargoes that will be very useful for that future space station, for those future space stations. And who knows, there might be one day an entrepreneur knocking on my door and proposing a crazy project of a private ISS. I'm ready to listen.
And Dassault Systèmes is ready to help. We want a European ISS. Thank you. With a French astronaut, a female one. And last question to all of you in 1 minute. Dear friends, when it comes to new space, what keeps you awake at night? Charles.
Oh my God.
Oh,
really is to support, defend all my ventures, because they are going fast, and they are asking me to go fast as well, to raise, prepare the second fund, and be there to fuel their growth. So that's really what wakes me at night about new space. I could have answered, I want to go to myself in the orbit. It's one of my dreams, it's true. But on a safe flight, if possible, with maybe with a balloon. I like the balloon. We have invested in a company that is proposing space tourism through balloons. It's maybe safer and more durable.
It depends where the balloon goes.
Yeah. Not on Nevada. Not on Nevada. And it's only 25 kilometers. It's not really space.
Thank you, Charles. Joseph, what keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake? Actually, we really have engaged in the new space world quite massively in ESA and the whole commercialization agenda, as you know. What keeps me awake is, are we going fast enough, far enough, deep enough, and strong enough in order to really pull it through? Because I see a huge development outside Europe, in the US, but not only, in China, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and many, many other countries. I would like Europe to be a leader in this. I would actually dream that Europe occupies 1/3 of this future space economy, which is expected to be 1 trillion in the next decade, and I think Europe can do it. But the new space companies and new space companies and space companies all together, they have to realize it.
Thank you, Joseph. Jean-Marc, last word for you. What keeps you awake at night in Toulouse?
What keeps me awake at night in Toulouse is 5,000 satellites in orbit today, 50,000 at the end of the decade. No regulation to avoid far west in space. That keeps me awake. Second thing that keeps me awake is that space becomes a territory of hostile conflict. I'm afraid we need to accept that. It will happen. The question is when and how. But if space becomes a territory of hostile acts and people start to destroy satellites in space, it will make the orbits unusable for decades. And this is a shout for help, because if it happens, the business is down. There is no business if there is no orbit. And at the moment, what I'm seeing is not reassuring me. So I look forward to seeing Europe developing a strong stance into this at the United Nations, that we make space like Antarctica a territory where you cannot have hostile acts. Because if this happens, this is the end of our business.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jean-Marc.
Can I add one more
Of
word to
course.
really confirm what you say, Jean-Marc? This is a huge challenge, if not to say threat. And I fully agree, Europe has to be a champion, has to be a model for the rest of the world, just as we have done it in climate change, where we have, in the 70s, 80s, raised the debate. We have become now the role model of doing it, and with space we have to do the same.
Yeah, and you have in this room a lot of supporters who want to make it happen together with you. So thank you very much, Charles, Joseph, and Jean-Marc. And please, a round of applause for the three of you. Merci.